So anxiety, and why is anxiety so difficult to treat? Why is it such an uphill struggle? And the real reason for that is this, that anxiety at its heart, as we know, thanks Michelle, anxiety is at its heart is what we know as a fear. There's some underlying fear. Now, I'm sure you're saying, of course there is. But what happens with anxiety, and I've talked about this before, is that anxiety presents in the mind at a thought level. And these thoughts come into the mind in the form of what I like to call projection or protection. So the projection stuff, the projection thoughts is normally, what if that happens? What if this happens? What if you do this and that fear comes true? What if you don't do this and that happens? So it's always the what ifs. And the what if thoughts are always checking and double checking and making sure that the thing that you don't want to happen or the fear that you don't want, it's always double checking that for you. It's always putting that in front of you and asking you those questions and creating that anxiety in your body. The protection questions are, don't do that. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. Make sure you're careful there, or go get that and everything will be all right. And go and get the job and go and get the money and go and get the status and go and get the boyfriend and go and get the whatever and you'll be okay and you'll be okay. That's the protection thoughts. And that's most people's experience of anxiety. Obviously alongside the bodily stuff and sometimes the intrusive thoughts. That's most people's real experience with anxiety. So when you present to a therapist, when you present to somebody, that's what you're talking about that is happening for you. That's what you're talking about that's happening for you and to you. And so that's what you're relaying as your experience of anxiety. Now for me, that's not, whilst it is absolutely real and true and it's what your mind is doing, but it's not the real core reason for anxiety. It's only the way in which your mind perceives it and sees it and is trying to protect yourself from it. Now, if you get stuck there, which is what happens, and it's why anxiety is so difficult to treat, if you get stuck in that stuff, you'll be stuck in anxiety forever. I see that as the product of anxiety. I don't see that as the reason for anxiety. So whenever I'm working with somebody, it's not that I'm not interested, because that's not fair to say. That's only the route to the why. It's only the route to the reason. It's not the reason itself. So if somebody's saying, what if this happens, what if that happens, and if you try to bring solutions under that, then you're really only getting stuck in the product of anxiety, which is why anxiety is so hard to treat. And most of us get stuck in the product, fixing the product of anxiety, never really taking the root cause of anxiety away. And if you're never really taking the root cause of anxiety away, it'll find other ways to show up. It'll find other ways to protect you. It'll find other ways to project the problem. And if you get stuck there, it is crucifying. And that's kind of why I'm talking about it today. I'm talking about it because I had an amazing client who, when I was working, because he was brilliant at bringing me down to the real reason, he said this to me, he said, why does my mind not show me the real reason why? Now I can understand why I am in full anxiety, because I can see the real reason here. Why did my mind not show me that? Why did it keep me running around in the product of it and the projection of it and the protection, the what ifs and the don't do this and the do that? And why did it not show me the real reason? And the answer is simple. Your mind's job is very basic. It's to keep you safe. There is no way in God's earth that it's going to take you to the site of the real pain. It's just not going to do it. It's not going to do it freely. It's not going to do it, skipping and diving. It's going to need somebody to hold your hand while you go looking at the real reason. When you can do that, then you're out. When you can do that, when you can find the root cause and you don't get stuck in the difficulty of it, then is when you can get out. Then is when you can get an answer. So my call to you is, try to ask yourself why. try to ask yourself, why am I feeling this fear? What is it that I'm ultimately afraid of? Bring yourself down to the reason, not the product of the anxiety. And I can guarantee you'll get out faster, you'll have better solutions to this, you'll have better... You'll get out quicker and faster, and that's all that I would say to you. So that is why anxiety is so difficult to treat. That's why we get caught in it for years and years and years and years. That is why we always end up, I suppose, feeling that we can never get out of anxiety, feeling that we can never move on from it. And then what happens then is that we just end up kind of changing our lives to provide a solution. So we end up shaping our lives so that we don't have to live with it, which means that we make our world smaller. So my tip to you is that try and ask yourself why. Try and come out of the product of anxiety and ask yourself, what's the real pain in this problem? What's the real fear? And I can promise you, you'll get out much quicker. Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully it wasn't too much of a rant, because it felt like a rant. And hopefully that made some sense for you.